Alright YouTube, doing a little intake gas beam replacement today on this Vortec LS here. Started by taking the negative battery terminal. Disconnect that guy before we start working here. You can just tuck him over to the side. Now we're going to start basically clearing the way so that we can get this intake plenum off. So remove our intake, remove our cover here, and get going. Alright, got the cover here removed, one bolt in the middle. That's an 8mm. That just lifts up and comes out like that. For the intake, you're going to have one band clamp here. You can just loosen that. On this design, the factory will be a little bit different. I have one bolt here as well. And then you'll also have to disconnect this radiator hose here. It's a little quick connect. You'll need a flathead screwdriver for that. Once you do that, this whole assembly will just lift up. Alright, intake out. See our throttle body here. Now what we're going to do is start basically disassembling all this wiring harness and fuel rails so that we can clear all that out and be able to lift the intake off. First thing I'll start with, there's a little coolant hose here that attaches on the bottom of the throttle body. I've already loosened it, but it has a little butterfly clamp here. You're going to want to loosen that out. You normally come in from the front side with a pair of pliers or something and loosen that, and this guy will just slide off, and we'll store him over to the side. Alright, for the throttle cable and cruise control, they're mounted up here on the top. I've already taken the bolts out, 3 bolts, 1, 2, 3. After I move them, I always put the bolts back in, that way you don't lose them. This cable here on the right, looking at it, this will be your throttle cable, cruise control on the left. For the throttle cable, you just spin this mechanism and you'll just pop it out down here at the bottom. I don't have a freehander I'd show you. But once you spin that around, it'll pop out and you can get it out there. For the cruise control, if I can get in here and get a focus, there's this little screw here, plastic. I normally just count the threads on the bottom end. Remember that number, and then you can just unscrew this and this whole cable will come out, and then we can fold this all the way back over and zip tie it up there somewhere to get it out of our way. Alright, I got the throttle and cruise control zip tied, pulled over to the side. Also forgot to mention, besides these 3 here, there's also another bracket in the back, 3 more screws. Those are 10mm. And again, I put screws back in so I don't lose them. Alright guys, moving forward, this main wiring harness up here at the top, it's held in place by 1 bolt here. That's this guy here. I've already taken him out, this hole here, and put him back on so I don't lose it. And you're also going to disconnect all these little connectors over here. Throttle body, this valve here. Disconnect this from the alternator. And I labeled all these just so I don't forget. You can see here this is an orange connector. I just wrote orange on here. I mean, when you put it back together, they kind of all just, you know, end up where they're kind of supposed to be in the general area. Just kind of have a little memory, or you can mark them all and label them, which I've also done. You can see here, put a little, if it won't zoom in, but put a little label on that guy too, and then also mark the corresponding connection. Over here on the side, I don't know if all the trucks have these or just mine or what, but it's basically this little, I don't know, call it a power tap or what will you? Alternator, wiring harness, a bunch of other stuff tap into this. Bolts onto the side of your system here. I always just unbolt him just to get him out of the way. Then again, just fold all the cables over to the side. And remember where they go. Now that I have this main wiring harness loose, the only thing really holding it now are these fuel injector connections. So I don't know if I'll be able to show it while I'm doing it here on the video, but I'll get all these disconnected. There's 4 on each side, and then I'll show you how the connector works afterwards. Alright guys, here's the, if you can see it, here's one of those fuel injector connectors. When they're in there, they'll be in there in this configuration on this side, basically like this. And all you're going to do is, let me set the camera down here. You can look at this. This is almost like a little trigger, and I have this one snapped back together so you can see how this works. But you're basically gonna stick your finger in there and pull this out. It'll slide down like that, and then once you do that, there'll be another little push connector here that you need to push in order to pull the whole assembly out. And then before we put these back in, I like to go ahead and snap them back up, and then they'll just slide right back in there once we're done. Alright guys, as you can see, main wiring harness is out of my way. Again, I just pulled him over to the side using this little mount. I just zip tied him to the master cylinder. Holds him pretty good, just to clear my way here. On the other side, just tucked the 4 fuel injectors up around the an area over there, just keep them clear. Now really all left to do, gonna disconnect the fuel injectors, and we'll just disconnect the plenum. This vacuum port here, it's just held into place by 1 bolt, and then once you disconnect that, he'll pop up and get out of your way there. He runs alongside the fuel rail, so he'll just kind of be there until we get that disconnected again. And then I just put the little rubber gasket and screw back in, or bolt back in where it goes. Keep it out of the way. And one other thing to note, here's that vacuum, or that coolant hose that I told you to disconnect earlier. I still have mine left on there. My engine's still a little warm, so I still have some coolant pressure built up in there, and it was kind of leaking. On the other side, there's also another one, this little hose here. There's a butterfly clamp on that end, another one on this side. You can kind of pick your poison to which one you want to disconnect. When I did it the first time, I chose this one. If you can get a pair of pliers up in there and slide this down, then you can come at it with the screwdriver here and help slide it down that way. So that's what I'm going to do. Again, if you think it's easier to get to this other one, feel free to do that as well. Alright, I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, but this is that same little hose. You can see I've slid the left-hand butterfly clamp down. And then what I like to use is just use a flathead screwdriver and get it up on the end of the hose if it's a little, stuck pretty good. And you can just use it to help slide the hose down. I can't really do it one-handed. There you can see it starting to move. Just be careful not to damage the end, but with 2 hands, just get a little screwdriver under there, and then you can pull with the other hand. Little trick. Alright, before I get to the fuel rails, there's a vacuum hose up here. It connects into the top of the intake here, and on the back side it just basically pushes down into the valve cover. I've already popped it loose, but you can slide this end out and pop the other end with the other hand, and it'll just come out as an assembly here, little unit. On the other end of it, the side that goes into the valve cover, that's your Pcv valve. So you can go ahead and inspect that. First time I did this, there was no rattle, there was no inner unit in there. That's a little control valve down in there. You're going to need that, so if your PCV valve's bad, go ahead and pick another one of those up, a couple bucks. Then you can just set this aside. Alright, PCV valve and vacuum hose are out. So next what I'm going to do is prepare these fuel rails. So first things first, this is our inlet and outlet fuel lines here. You got to have a special tool to disconnect these, which I don't have, but there is another way around that. The inlet and outlet come in here on this right side if you're looking at the engine, and then there's a jumper that goes all the way over to the other side of the fuel rail. Well, on each side of these jumpers there's a connection. I don't think you can see it, there's no light. Okay, here. One little screw here, and on the other side the same thing, a little screw here. So since I don't have that tool, what I normally do just disconnect this and the one on the other side as well, and we'll be able to just pop this crossover up and fold it up out of our way, and we won't worry about disconnect the inlet and outlet. So and also before you do that, over here on the left side there's this little cap right here. This is so you can relieve pressure in the fuel system. This kind of works like a, I guess you could call it a Schrader valve. And I'll put a rag under there and stuff before I do that. There will be a little fuel that leaks, but this will relieve pressure in the fuel system before you go ahead and pop this sucker. Right, relieving fuel pressure in the system. Again, little Schrader valve, kind of like on a car tire or anything else, if you will. I like to just use a little flathead, and I have my rag placed under there. But I've already done it and soaked up 2 rags. My engine's still a little warm, so there's a little more pressure than normal, but nothing else is coming out, so we'll call that good. Alright, disconnecting the fuel line crossover. Again, I say there's a screw on each side. This is a star bit, so there'll be one here and one on the other side. Just have to loosen those and they'll come right out. Alright, got this left side done here. Take the star bit out, and this little assembly, this is what actually keeps the fuel line held down into this inlet so that it can't move around, but he'll come out, the screw will come with it. Store that where you won't misplace it. Then you just take this and kind of shimmy it and wiggle it. I have some rags here because there will be a little bit of fuel here, and he'll just pop up like that. Now it is still connected on the other side, so it'll just kind of sit there until I get the other side done. Again, I already disconnected this little attachment here. Then there'll be 2 more. If you can see under here on the bottom fuel line, there'll be this little bolt here. I kind of loosened it up already. But I like to take this guy out. That'll allow this bottom line to move independently of the top one when we try to get him out of our way. And then right back here there's a bracket. One 8mm bolt there. Once we disconnect that, we'll be able to lift this whole guy up and flip him up out of the way. And that'll be it. Alright, remove that screw and that bracket, like I said a minute ago, and then once I do that, again, just wiggle this guy and look, he'll come right out. The bottom line, it also has an independent little inlet. Since we disconnected him from the top one, he'll also be able to move up independently. And what I like to do, I just kind of swing these over, and I'll zip tie these over here somewhere out of the way, and that also has the inlets up. There's probably a little bit of fuel left in here, maybe not, but it'll kind of settle down, but these inlets are up, so there won't be any spilling out. And the bottom guy, I'll do the same way, just kind of flip him over and tuck him out of the way. Alright, got that fuel line crossover and both the fuel lines pulled over to the side, zip tied. Also from earlier, that little vacuum valve here, I have him folded over and zip tied over here as well. Now for the 2 fuel rails, there's basically 2 bolts on each one. One in the front here and then one in the back, you see right there. I already have them loosened up. They'll just come out, put those over to the side. Once you do that, with a little wiggling, the fuel rail should just slide right up. I'll see if I can video that. Alright, both the bolts out. Kind of just grab it at the front and the back, more towards, you know, where the bolts are located. A little wiggling. There's 2. Try to come up uniformly. You don't want to bend one of the injectors or anything like that, but a little wiggling. Be careful, there is still some fuel in this rail, but just dropped that. But there you go. 4 fuel injectors. I already cleaned mine not too long ago. I had to do this before, but that's what it looked like. Same procedure on the other side. Alright, fuel rails out. Now I would say technically you do not have to remove the fuel rails in order to lift this intake plenum up. But while you're disassembling this, tearing it all up, you might as well get the fuel rails out. Then again, go ahead, further step, take the fuel injectors out of the fuel rails and clean those suckers up. You can kind of just soak those with a little bit of carb cleaner or fuel system cleaner. I would recommend the fuel system cleaner over the carb cleaner, but soak those a little bit. Don't actually soak the top plastic part, just soak the bottom injector portion. Just have them in a little bowl or something standing on their ends. But now that we have those babies out, there will be 5 bolts on each side. You can't really miss them. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then one in the back. We're going to go ahead and loosen those up, remove the bolts, and that's basically the final step before we're able to pop this sucker out. Alright, got all 10 bolts loosened up. While you're loosening them up and removing them, there's not really any required sequence. You can still kind of jump in, you know, like a star pattern if you want. And another thing, when they're loose, the bolt won't actually come out. It stays in place, but you will be able to pull it all the way up. That's how you know it's fully disconnected on the bottom side. Got all 10 of those puppies done. Another thing to note, there is one connection up here on the top that you'll have to disconnect. And what else am I missing? Yeah, you can see this hose. I don't know if you can see it. There's a hose that comes out right about here. It runs over to your firewall and it'll connect in right here by your master cylinder. It's a vacuum hose. You can decide where you want to disconnect that. I normally start with here, and this will just pop out. There'll probably be some vacuum, so it'll be a little tough to do. Maybe not a one-hand job. There we go. You heard that vacuum release pressure. And then before you pull this intake manifold off, fish this guy over here and get him clear of all these other cables you have zip tied up so that he can come out with the unit when you pull it out. Something like that. And that should be it. I've never actually pulled this out by myself. It is pretty light. So let me give it a gander here first and then I'll come back and film it.
You sit next to the fans committed to not watching their lucky jerseys. You know, watching the game is not a game. And your Sunday morning routine is a necessary ritual. You're not fooled by those so-called statistics. You've mastered the science of superstition. Thank you for crossing your fingers, for knocking on wood, for refusing to come out with your bad luck about the game day.
Ta-da!
Whatever it takes. It's only weird if it doesn't work.
Whoo! Alright, as you saw, just lifted that out by myself. If you're not as nimble as you are to get up in here, it might be easier with 2 people. The real trick is lifting the back end up. The front's easy. The back end, you don't want to just drag it across. So you kind of at least got to try to lift it up some way, and then you'll lift the front end up like you just saw in the video, and it'll kind of come up like that. Now that we have it off, if this is the first time you're doing it, your gaskets will actually be connected to the intake plenum. They won't still be in here. They have a little connector on the factory OEM intake gaskets. I previously did this and replaced these with some Felpros so they stay actually seated in here. You can see I can wiggle it, they will come out. And then here in the middle you have your forward and rear knock sensors. These are little covers or gaskets, if you want to call those that as well. You can see on the back one I have sealed it with some RTV. Previously, I'll go over that as to why. I'm actually replacing this connector today. That was a fuck up on my part the last time I did this. The connector inside broke and I tried to glue it in place with some high temperature glue and it just didn't hold. So I got a new connector and I'll be doing that today. So I'm going to go ahead and work on getting that RTV scraped up and put the new one in. Alright guys, got these connectors out. You can see here, this little cover will just actually slide up and down this cable. So just try to easily, gently do that. And this is what the connector looks like. Let me show you. As you can see, this is why I'm doing this today. Last time I did this, I broke this damn connector. And I tried to, glue it in there with some high temperature glue. It just didn't hold up over time. I knew it when I did it. I should have just replaced this bastard, but oh well, here I am again getting to have a little more fun. But if you want to try to do it without breaking it, this will be connected down in here like this. Now that I've done it a couple times, I know the easy way. You won't be able to get your fingers down in here to press on this at the same time. At least if you don't have, if you don't got man hands like mine, maybe you can, but the easiest way I've found to do it, let me connect this up and I'll see if I can show you. Damn it, get out of my light. Okay, if that's, well shit. I'm not left-handed. If I'd have been smart, I would be holding the camera with the other hand. Alright, so now he's connected down in there. Easiest way I found to do it, get one finger on this side of the connector, and from this other side, using your other hand, just use a little flathead screwdriver to press the connector on this other side, obviously with your other hand. But you'll be pressing on one side with your finger, the other side with the screwdriver, and you should be able to just slide it right up. This one's already loose, but you can see the little, this is what's grabbing these tabs, and you got to squeeze it from both of these sides to, make those squeeze out and disconnect. So one finger on this side, the screwdriver on this other side, and you should be able to press and lift upside down, but press and lift. If that makes any kind of damn sense, I don't know if I just understood it, but that's how it works. Alright guys, out here got my new connector that I'm putting in today. This is the old one that I just showed you that I broke this rear connector off. Gonna put that new guy in, but I was explaining earlier, I showed you I had some RTV sealant that I put around this old one in the rear. The last time I did this, also put some on the front just because, but in these engines it's kind of a bad design. This just sits down in that hole on the head there. It's just not sealed good enough. Water can still get in here, and over time it just kind of drips down because there's nothing around the outer side to keep water from going down in there. And you can see here, these are my old knock sensors. This is the rear one. You can see how corroded he is. Pretty toasted. This is the old front one. It's not too bad, still got a little bit in there. The new ones look similar to this, just none of this small corrosion on top, real shined up and slick. I went ahead and replaced both, but the rear definitely bad. So that's why after you put the new ones in, get this connected up and installed, you can build up a little dam of RTV around the outer edge, and that'll keep water from getting in there permanently. You can also put a little bead around the inside too if you want like double protection. And that's what I did on the front one, put a little bead on the inside. Probably do both, small bead on the inside and then build up a pretty good bead of, make a little dam on the outside. So I'm going to go do that and I'll show you the after pics, but yeah, that guy looks nice, doesn't he? Alright guys, got the new connector in there. You can see I built up the little dam of RTV here on the back one. Front one here, I did do RTV, I just did it on the inside since this one usually doesn't have any problems, but the back one I did the inside as well as the outside. So we should be good to go on that and not have to worry about this sucker again. Again, if you're doing the gaskets as well, go ahead and clean up your heads here. For that, I would just use a razor blade and some carb cleaner. This is aluminum block. You don't want to damage it with any kind of scrub brush or anything like that. Steel brush, I wouldn't recommend that. Just use a razor blade, some carb cleaner. Just take your time. Slick that sucker right up. Get a good seal. I already have my new Pcv gasket on there. Now I'm going to get to reassembling this baby. Alright guys, got the intake manifold, plenum, whatever you want to call it, back in there. Whew! It was a little tricky by myself. Wasn't too bad, it was just awkward getting up in there. But once you got it in there and seated, you know, it's normally good to wiggle it, make sure it seats properly. You can also check the injector ports to make sure that you got a clean entry into the heads. You know, just take your time, double check everything before you start tightening it down. If you're satisfied that the gasket's lined up or you got a good seal, then you can get ready to start tightening these babies down. Alright guys, getting ready to tighten down this intake here. If you don't have a diagram, here's the sequence of tightening sequence here, 1 through 10. And you're also going to do a 2-stage tightening. Intake manifold, step 1, 44 inch-pounds, step 2, 89 inch-pounds. Remember to divide that by 12 if all you have is a foot-pound. Wrench, step 1, step 2. That's basically it. Alright, got the intake manifold back in. Got all 10 bolts torqued down to spec. Again, it's a 2-stage tightening sequence. 44 inch-pounds the first time. That's about, I don't know, between 4 and 5 foot-pounds. And 89 inch-pounds on the second turn. I went with 7.5 foot-pounds. That comes out to about 90 inch-pounds, so pretty much right on. Now I'm going to start buttoning everything back up. I'll start by connecting this vacuum hose back over to the firewall by the master cylinder right there. Then I'll do the fuel rails and go from there. Alright, got the vacuum hose put back in. Before I put the fuel rails, right here on top of the intake, this is the knock sensor connector. It has a little clip on it, so it comes around the back underneath this guy, feeds up, and it snaps onto here. Oh, I just popped it off, but it'll connect onto there. And once we get the main wiring harness over here, it'll have another connector. Also, don't forget, on the back top side there's a connector right here that we disconnected earlier before we pulled this out. Don't forget to connect him back up. Might as well do it now while he's easy to get to. Alright, working on putting the fuel rails back in. Already got the other side done. I wanted to add a quick note on this side. So this one will go in there like that. And just remember, we want the connectors coming in from this side. So got the connectors on this left-hand side facing outward. Kind of have them lined up where you approximately think the connector will be. And then this guy, I normally just set him in there, you know, set him in the holes, get him lined up even, something like that. And then I'm going to switch to 2 hands, and you're just going to kind of wiggle and pop him in there. Just work from the outside in at the same time. Alright guys, got the fuel rails back in. Both the inlet and outlet are coming back in. I put the crossover valve, or the crossover hose actually, line if you want to call it that, back in. Screwed both of these little retainers back in. This has that star bit if you remember from earlier. Again, another one on this side, this gold plate here. I also went ahead and put back in, we had removed, if you can see it, maybe not. Well, approximately here, there's another connector that holds the bottom line. And then the bracket, damn, you can't see it. Anyway, there's a bracket right here, and the bolt for that bracket serves as the back bolt for the fuel rail itself. Placed back in this little vacuum wire here. He goes from here right down to this valve here, and he just pops off, pop back on. Also put back in the PCV vacuum hose. It goes here and feeds back to the rear of the valve cover, just behind this clip that you see right there. Alright, got this vacuum assembly put back together here. a little bolt here, and don't forget the little rubber gasket. Also, don't forget the 2 coolant lines. Hard to see. One here. Butterfly clip's already way back up in here. I already put it back together. Coolant line here. Also, this coolant line here comes back in. Butterfly clip up under there. Don't forget those guys. Alright, got the wiring harness folded back over. This is basically held in place by this one bolt here. It's part of this bracket. Connected back up. There's a blue connection here, sort of the longer one. This guy's a little purple one. I think this is a light blue here. And then the orange that goes to the alternator. Now I'm going to work on getting all the fuel injectors connected back together. I'll show you how to do that over here. Alright, as I showed earlier, this is a fuel injector connector. Has this little trigger release, and then the button you push here to pull it out. Now when I put it back together, see if I can do this with one damn hand. I don't know if I can. This goes on top of this tab here. Shit, I don't think you can see that, but damn it. So it goes on top and then it'll slide down in there like that. Fuck. Time out. Okay, let's try this again. I just made a short clip and it sucks, so now I'm redoing it. Now, this is one of the fuel injector connectors. I'm about to connect all 4 up here and over there as well. I showed you before, this was the little trigger release, and then there is the tab here that you have to push in order to pull those out. When you put them back together, I like to go ahead and connect this up first. This little nipple, if you will go on the outside of this. So on the outside, and it'll feed down in there. And that's how it snaps into place. And then all you'll have to do, see if I can get a shot of this. So I have it, snapped down in, secured. This tab won't push. And that's basically how it locks in there. Well, I'm just going to use it that way and feed it into the actual fuel injector. And you can just kind of push on this mechanism as one unit. And it should snap right in there and it's secure. Locked into place. That's how you're going to do that. Alright, got all 8 fuel injector connectors connected back up. Just as a sanity check, I like to give them all a little tug. Not a rub and tug, just a little tug. Make sure they're in there good, not loose or anything like that. Both sides are snapped together, connected up. Now really all that's left, I'm going to do the throttle body, or the throttle and cruise control assembly. And then we're getting close, we're almost done, then we'll pressurize this sucker and fire back up. Now, got the throttle and cruise control assembly put back together. Again, there was 3 bolts on this bracket here. They feed forward. 3 more bolts here that hold this bracket and this assembly. Then the cruise and the throttle. When I had disassembled this, I had about 3 right at 4 threads, 3 sticking out, and the 4th thread was right on the edge, and this groove was on the top, so just screwed it back together till it matches where it was at. Then the throttle cable, if you turn him up, oh, too dark, there you go. There's a little slot right there that you pop that sucker out and he'll come out of that side slot. Putting him back together is just the opposite of that. He feeds through there. Also, probably should have done it, I forgot to mention it right before this, before you put this bracket over. The knock sensor came in here. There's another cable that was part of this wiring harness that connects into the other side of that. You can see the blue tab on this end. Just don't forget to connect that guy back up, or you'll have no knock sensor. Alright, connected back up this power tap that I showed earlier. There's a main battery cable that feeds into this baby. Your alternator power also goes to that. That's how it regeneratively charges your battery. I also have some auxiliary lights and stereo system running off of that as well through these fused cables. But definitely get your battery cable and your alternator hooked back up to that. My door here also doesn't snap together quite good, so I always zip tie them. This is a zip tie wrapping around that guy. Kind of keep it sealed better. And after that, we're pretty well done. I'm going to connect back up my intake, put the cover back on. Then I'm going to walk around the truck, eyeball everything one more time to make sure I got all the connectors connected back up. Then we're going to fire this baby up. Okay, got the intake back on, reconnected the mass airflow sensor. I've double checked everything. I appear to have all connectors, vacuums, everything's connected up. Got the negative terminal of the battery connected back up as well. So now I'm going to go ahead and fire this baby up. I'm going to leave the cover off the top for now so I can easily see if there's any kind of leaks or anything with the fuel. Just help make it easier to visualize stuff, and then see what happens. Alright, got in the truck, about to start it up. Since we did depressurize the fuel system, you're going to just turn the key on to accessory, auxiliary, however you want to call it. I'm going to do that a couple times. You should hear the fuel pump running in person. You can't hear it here. I got a radio going, all kind of stuff, but I'm going to do that a couple times, take the key out, put it back in, pressurize it. Also at the beginning, since we messed with the vacuum, your brakes are going to be funny for a minute, so you have to pump those up. Just be notice of that before you go driving. I do have the parking brake on for now. Do that one more time. 144,000 miles on this baby. Alright. First time you fire it off, it may be a little rough. Let it settle. Alright, it did fire up. Again, it'll run a little funny here at the beginning. Let's go see what he sounds like. Alright. Almost purring like a kitten. Double checking that side. I don't see any apparent leaks. Over here we're looking good as well. So I'm going to let this run for a little bit, get up to temperature. And then I'm going to back it out of here. And again, getting in here. Before I started this, I had a check engine light for my NOx sensor. Appears at the moment that is out. Let's hope that holds. But anyway, I'm going to button all this up, back out of here, let my brakes pressurize a little bit. They were a little funny a while ago. As vacuum builds up, they start getting a lot better. Alright, cover back on, everything's tidied up. Going to put up my makeshift light and GoPro assembly. That's it.